Dan Coxon. I'm here to talk to you about this book, which is out now with Blackshuck Books. Before I talk about it, just a word about their series that it's in, the Shadows series. It's a fantastic series. I'm very proud to be number 19 in this series, but you should check out all the others, 18, 19 and beyond. Fantastic series, all really, really good. And they give you a good taster of some incredible authors who you really should check out. But enough about them. Let's talk about me. This is a mini collection of 6 stories. They were written over about a 6 or 7 year period, so they weren't particularly written with this in mind. But as you can probably tell by the plants around me, I've become a bit obsessed with plants in recent years, and I've kind of felt that I should really write something about them. So gradually over time, I've accumulated several stories about plants, about trees, about fungi, about gardening, of which this is probably the culmination. It's kind of, somebody asked me the other day if it was horror or not. It's partly horror, partly weird fiction, partly just kind of unsettling strangeness. I think there's a bit of something in there for everybody, frankly, unless you hate plants, in which case this probably isn't for you. I'm going to read you a short section from the start of the title story, Green Fingers, which has never been published anywhere else. So this is all new. Hope you enjoy it. I almost don't take Oscar with me. Funny, isn't it? How these little decisions make all the difference. If this were a science fiction story, it might fracture in two at this point. That one tiny decision splitting the universe apart, creating a parallel world in which none of this happens, and life goes on as usual, and everything works out just fine. This isn't that story. I'm stuck with the world I have. As it is, Oscar's been pouring at the front door since breakfast, and even a quick toilet break on the lawn hasn't stopped him for long. We've had rain showers on and off for the past 3 days, and my own tendency to shut myself away has kept him imprisoned in my 1-bedroom flat. He wants greenery and fresh air. Despite all the illustration work forming virtual piles in my inbox, so do I. Deadlines are movable. Procrastination is king. Stacking my bowl on last night's plate in the sink, I take the hint and fetch his lead. Oscar isn't my first dog, but he is the first to be wholly mine. I was 9 or 10 when we got Sasquatch, Sassy for short, when we didn't want to embarrass Mum and Dad, but he was a family dog, shared with my parents and my brother and sister. Then there was the short-lived romance with Jeremy after uni, and his Cocker Spaniel, Max. Best not to mention Max, a spiteful little thing, and more in love with his master than I could ever be. For the record, I think Jeremy would have been happier if I'd thought of him as my master too. Also, for the record, that was never going to happen. It was only when I found myself scratching out a lonely existence in a 1-bedroom flat at the age of 24, in the home counties, almost 200 miles from home, living the hermit-like existence of the perennial freelancer and barely seeing another human being from one day to the next, that I thought of getting a dog of my own. That was 3 years ago now, and Oscar has been my companion through thick and thin, including some pretty thin times indeed. I guess he's learned to love the taste of cut-price doggy chow from Poundland. Either that, or he's learned that complaining gets him nowhere. The ground is still wet underfoot as we walk to the common, but the sun is bright, spectral wisps of steam drifting from the garden fences that line the path. Oscar's frisky, more so than usual, the result of his unwelcome confinement. I feel him tug insistently at the lead as we reach the row of fences and the path opens out into the verdant greenery of his play space. I tug him back once or twice, asserting my role as she who must be obeyed. We both know, though, that I'm really little more than she who brings the food, and occasionally she who picks up and bags my turds. If it sounds like a one-sided relationship, picture him stretched out next to me on the double duvet, and you'll see why I put up with it. My guess is there are plenty of dog owners who've made a similar pact. Strictly speaking, dogs are meant to be kept on the lead while on the common, but in practice all of us give in sooner or later. It's simply too much fun to see them run free through the woods and bracken, thundering up animal trails, forced through the undergrowth, only to reappear a minute later 100 yards down the path, panting and wagging like they're having the time of their lives. The rule's intended to protect the small population of red deer that call the woods home, but in reality they keep to themselves and out of sight, and domesticated canines like Oscar are too slow and stupid to catch them anyway. On the rare occasion when he catches sight of a deer, Oscar will turn to me with a quizzical expression in his eyes, like he knows he's meant to do something, but can't for the life of him remember what. By then his prey will be a bobbing white tail vanishing through the trees. I can't speak for the other dog walkers, but it's safe to say that my Oscar isn't a natural hunter. Which is why I'm confused when I unclip him from the lead and he races off barking into the undergrowth, darting up a narrow path between two patches of brambles. This isn't behaviour I'm used to, and for a few seconds I don't know what to do. Then, muttering under my breath, I run after him. If you've imagined me as the lean, athletic type, then now's the point where I set you straight. I'm not exactly overweight, but I could certainly do with losing a pound or 2, or 10. Given that my working day involves sitting on a chair in the kitchen, trying ineffectually to avoid the temptations of the biscuit tin, it's fair to say that I could be in better shape. I'm no gym bunny either, so my pursuit as Oscar shoots off between the brambles is over in less than a minute, my breath coming up short and the stabbing pain of a stitch crippling my side. I'm not in the habit of leaving the tended paths, so the overgrown track I find myself on is both new and, I'll admit it, rather exciting. Branches and brambles crisscross it, obscuring the way at times, and even the dirt underfoot has the sponginess of rotten leaves. I smell something like stewed tea and feel a sudden craving for a cuppa. Of Oscar, there is no sign. The tangle of ferns and bracken and the tall, slender trunks of the silver birches to either side leave little option but to follow the path. It seems unlikely that Oscar's veered off even further off-piste, and even if he has, there's no way I'm following him through the knee-high growth, as thick and wild as it is. That only leaves the path. I do my best to step over the brambles and low-lying branches at first, but before long I'm happily crushing them beneath my feet, enjoying the occasional crack as dead wood snaps under my heel. It takes less than a minute for that initial reverence to give way to joy in the act of destruction. We're all 5-year-olds swinging a stick through the bluebells at heart. I've stopped to look at a weird fungus clinging to the side of a thick old birch, cream, bracket-shaped but thin and ragged like torn paper, when I hear the barking. It comes from only 10 or 20 metres ahead, and standing on tiptoes, I fancy I can see movement between the trees, flashes of golden brown fur. Oscar. I'd like to say that I run to him, but it's more of a jog. I've already learned my limitations. As I draw close, I can see my canine friend, and something has him riled. Oscar isn't what you'd call a loud dog. In fact, he barely barks at all, only occasionally when next door's cat skulks over the fence and into our flower beds. But something's set him off. Between the barks there's a deep guttural growl in his throat that I've never heard before, and his legs are rigid, quivering with suppressed energy. Before I even reach him, I'm calling his name, hoping it might be enough to snap him out of it. My first thought, naturally, is that he's cornered a deer. My second is that he's injured or even killed it. When I emerge into the clearing, however, I see no deer to rescue, no emergency to deal with, and I stop, trying to take it all in. Oscar has looked at me to acknowledge my presence, but his attention is turned towards the centre of the clearing where a massive tree grows. It must be 9 or 10 feet around its trunk, far thicker than I could possibly hope to wrap my arms around, and its upper branches soar skywards, as tall as the surrounding birches and more, straightening in their upper reaches as if reaching for the sun. About 6 feet off the ground, the trunk suddenly splits into 5, each limb as thick as, if not thicker than, the trees around it, grasping upwards like a giant hand thrust out of the earth. From one of those limbs stretches a ribbon of bright yellow tape, leading to a metal stake pushed into the ground, then across to the trunk of a slim silver birch where it's tied off. The word police is printed on it, in black, over and over. I'm going to leave it there for now, but that is just the start of that story, Green Fingers, from this mini collection. I hope you'll check it out, and even if you don't, I hope you're keeping well. Thanks very much for listening, and please check out the rest of Black Shuck's excellent Shadows series.